Let's now also welcome back Professor Greg Barton from Monash University's School of Political and Social Inquiry, who was with us for much of yesterday's program. And good to see you, Greg. And of course, we've learned so much more about particularly these two brothers at the centre of these attacks. What do you make of what you've learned?
Look, the disturbing thing is the story is very familiar. Young French-born men of North African ancestry, in trouble with the law, sort of lives going nowhere, falling upon mentors who radicalise them, often being radicalised in prison, then hooking up with jihadi groups, going overseas, getting combat experience, and then acting out rage at home. We saw that with Mehdi Namouche last year. We saw it a couple of years earlier with Mohamed Merah. This is just on a bigger scale.
And it's part of a very short turnaround too, because they were in turn helping recruit and radicalise others, or one of the brothers was.
Yeah, what's interesting is, we think of radicalisation foreign fighters as Syria, Iraq and Islamic State. These guys, Ali Sharif was involved back a decade ago with after the occupation in Iraq, sending fighters to Iraq. They entered via Syria, so Syria was involved, but it wasn't the civil war in Syria. It was the occupation of Iraq. So that's the first wave of foreign fighters, and he appears to have been radicalised then and remained radicalised ever since. Begs the question why they went under more surveillance, but I suspect the French authorities have dozens and dozens of young men like this, and it's beyond their power to surveil them all.
The point you made and has been made is that this is becoming an issue, and these kind of random attacks, for want of a better word, make it very difficult for any police force or any level of authority to try and monitor 24/7.
Yeah, and people often misunderstand the term lone wolf terrorist, but what it means is terrorists acting by themselves or with their brother or maybe three people at the most, not part of a larger network. Normally they're not very effective. The Boston Marathon bombing was horrible, but those guys were amateurs and they didn't have a great impact in terms of lives lost. What was disturbing on Wednesday is these two gunmen were so very effective.
And it wasn't like this was a surprise to the officers at Charlie Hebdo. There was some police protection given, at least to the editor. So I guess in reviewing this, they may be going to have to look at how that protection is served to people who need protection, and maybe heavier arms and more police in that brigade, if they can't monitor so many radicalised young men.
Well, there's a point there, Paul, but I mean, what sort of media office, editorial office is a TV studio is going to have more than 2 armed police guards on the door and a locked door? I mean, that's a level of security we can't imagine here. And it wasn't enough when you've got guys with assault rifles. So I don't think that's the solution. Intelligence and getting ahead of the problem is the solution, but it's very hard with these small-scale lone wolf attacks.
The difficulty... Sorry, go ahead.
One thing that I found really interesting in reading as much as I could about this yesterday was the links to the suburbs where these young men come from, why they're so ripe for the picking for radicalisation, and their attack on Charlie Hebdo. These older cartoonists were sort of anarchists back in the day, but now it was almost an attack on the establishment itself with these revered cartoonists. Yeah,
these brothers were part of a radical cell in the 19th arrondissement, and that's a well-known network. So they were sort of really networked. They were plugged into sort of known problem areas, and there are geographical parts of particularly the north of outer Paris that are a problem.
Given what police seem to have cited in their vehicle, would it seem to you that that was not their only target? That in fact that they perhaps were on their way to do more damage?
That's a good point. I mean, if it's confirmed there were Molotov cocktails and other weaponry, yes. I mean, one of the number of remarkable things about this attack is we're still talking about it today, and these guys are still on the run. Yeah. So it seems that they might have been prepared to give their lives, but they were planning on doing a series of things.
Out licence plates, which seems remarkable that they were able to get 80 kilometres with blacked out licence plates.
Yeah, I would not have predicted they'd get so far. That is the most remarkable thing about the security aspect here, but it seems like they were intent on doing other things.
Greg, a conversation that I continued to have with many people throughout the course of the day was this violence begetting violence issue. Having worked so long in this field, we respond very strongly. We respond with an armed, in an aggressive way. How do we break this nexus?
There's no easy answer, Bev, but we have to work together. We have to work with community groups. That helps intelligence, it helps lower the level of radicalisation, helps drag people back into mainstream society. It's not a guarantee, but there's no other way around. Look at what Egypt has done with the Muslim Brotherhood. Now, they have some justification for acting toughly, but for decades and decades, acting tough on Muslim Brotherhood and others in Egypt has only made the problem worse.
Suppressed it.
Al-Qaeda began with the Muslim Brotherhood suppression in the mid-60s. I mean, that's the beginning of this modern cycle.
Thanks. Always good to talk to you. Thanks, Greg, for coming in again.